Mr. Gopalakrishnan, let me come to you quickly. Given that you've previously also worked on a lot of the laws and rules that define our use and deployment of emerging technologies, and in this sort of all-pervasive digital realm that we all live in, tell me how have you seen that perspective, that sort of innovators' perspective on regulations evolve perhaps here in relation to the US?
Okay, I'll speak more from what shouldn't be the case, in the sense like what he was telling. We need a bit of certainty. But unlike other areas of regulation, say like policing or taxation or things like that, the field is much more defined. What are your goals and how do you go about regulating? In terms of emerging technologies, frankly, nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. In fact, what is happening today also possibly most of it is not fully known clearly. So it has to be more of a very cautious approach and try to be clear on what is the harm and then try to avoid it rather than take anything extreme. The other danger is we may sort of throw the baby with the bathwater. In the sense, if there are sectors where if initiative is stifled, then we lose a good opportunity. So we got to be more risk-taking in terms of letting things happen. We got to be more clear about focusing on harms which are actually harmful rather than trying to be very defensive, like something may go wrong, so let me be very, very harsh and stuff like that. So the only way out of this is consultative, and one saving grace is it is global.
It's not the technology tool that is necessitating that regulation. It's the behavior or the misuse. So that's our basic message is don't target the technology. Don't look at technology as requiring a particular new set of rules. Look at the behaviors and target those as you would in the offline world as well.
So therefore, we need to have more and more consultation, as Mr. Gopalakrishnan was saying. The more and more consultations will make us understand what is the demand of the reality. I'm sorry to say, in last 40-50 years in the country, the policies were for certain set of people, and we were expecting that miracles will happen and the people sitting down the line will be benefited. Since last 10 years, there is a greater change. But again, we have to do many things.
Jason, while we talk about, of course, the Indo-US collaborations, let me also ask you, what areas of this collaboration hold the most potential for setting global standards in emerging technologies?
In terms of setting international standards, I think AI is one area that we've been talking about a lot and is really the future of technology. And both the US and India have taken the same thoughtful approach. And it's a thoughtful approach that we can applaud, in particular, as we look at the EU. The European Union has taken a very different approach. They've taken kind of a regulate first and ask questions later approach with the adoption of the AI Act in the EU. The loudest voices complaining about that approach are actually European technology companies, particularly small and medium businesses that just can't succeed in deploying AI in the face of that regulatory burden. I've spent a lot of time in India this week talking to government officials about the AI mission as set out by the Honorable Prime Minister. And that mission includes not regulating first and asking questions later, as happened in Europe, but rather examining the landscape for opportunities to encourage investment here in AI.
The current government, the last 10 years, has set an example of not cut, copying, and pasting, as somebody said. They've been slow to regulate, but what they first do is to create the policy document, whether it's the Digital India policy, whether it's the Gati Shakti, the master plan. So generally they've studied the landscape, understood what foreign regulations and legislations have done, understood the consumer harms associated with those regulations. They've also looked at what and how it impacts the investment climate, and what do foreign nations think about those regulations, come out with a policy document, and then allow the industry to figure out its own course.
Speaking about India and US collaboration, and given the global nature of technology, Vivan, how can this sort of collaboration enhance the impact on global supply chains?
We've gotten good as almost suppliers to these ecosystem players. So we've built companies that are best in class in many market segments in the digital space today. Whether it is hailing a ride, whether it is getting something to your doorstep in an instant, whether it is watching a movie, we have, whether it is indeed gaming, whether it is, again, SaaS tools that enable consumers to do more. We have Indian alternatives. In fact, Indian companies have sort of primacy in these spaces because they are able to adapt to and target the sort of Indian reality. And they have to work very closely and ride on the coattails of the global majors to be able to now provide these services to the world. So I think it's a symbiotic conversation. The moment we think of it as a binary, that somehow we have to create some sort of a Galapagos effect in India and isolate ourselves from the world and create services only for ourselves, and that will sustain us, I think that would be missing the woods for the trees.
When it comes to the government, how can you create policies that incentivize private sector investment in consumer technology? Give me a little bit of an insight from you on that.
If we talk about technology, then from the consumer's perspective, the first thing which strikes our mind is e-commerce. Today, it has we have gone one step ahead. Now, quick commerce. And the next future is social commerce. But if we do not adhere to certain principles, you are going to destroy, damage the retail fabric of the country. And this fabric is fundamental to national economy. So therefore, I would strongly suggest to US and other countries, though we welcome with folded hands. But yes, you cannot take India, consider as a banana republic, and you don't care for the law of the land. So my ultimate thing is, because everything is dependent upon consumer. Whatever we are producing, whatever we are selling, whatever we are providing, ultimately somebody is user. And user is a consumer. So my sincere advice would be that we welcome everybody, especially US, because we are a strategic partner. But yes, we do care for our laws, we do care for our country. We are there to extend help to you. We are there to receive help from you. But at an equal level, the standard which has been set by none other than Prime Minister Modi.
Deepak, coming to you, what steps can industry leaders in the consumer tech space take to ensure that the online space remains secure and trustworthy? Give us your perspective on that.
A lot is said, but not much done. And I think there is a lethargy to it simply because, it's seen as a cost of business that need not be done until there's a problem. But with
Reactive.
yes, now it's becoming clearer that that a stitch in time saves 9, and so this is now not becoming a option. You have to put in places to ensure that both data protection and privacy of users is actually fully secured. That's one. Two, on trust and safety and user safety, I think it's a halfway house. It's seen more as educating users and building trust in your platform is seen as something that is, again, not absolutely essential because it may disrupt his time spent. What are the metrics? It may disrupt all the metrics, your customer acquisition cost, your time spent, your unit per economics, etc. So again, it's a halfway house, but a lot more needs to be done by the industry, less by the government, really.
It's like an iceberg when you think of cybersecurity. A lot of actions are happening below the surface. For instance, by device makers, OEMs, operating systems, app stores. And I think we have to recognize this action for what it is. There is an opportunity to work with these providers of, let's call it critical infrastructure in the software realm, to really up-level our view, our vantage point on the kinds of cybersecurity threats that are affecting us today. And it's no surprise that over the last 2-3 years since COVID, the cyber attacks in the surface area has grown. And a lot of those attacks are from adversarial countries. And this is where we have to smarten up a little bit and not conflate issues and be very clear about where we need big platforms to work with the government in strategic areas to kind of countervail some of these pressures. I think the Americans are doing it particularly well, although they also have a bevy of civil society voices that crop up from time to time to agitate against this kind of implicit partnership. But the faster technology moves, the faster your adversaries move, it's clearer that you need to be able to forge them and be dynamic and agile and work with partners on an everyday basis. And any law or any legal intervention or policy intervention that's taken in a silo that ignores this dynamic is going to also be problematic for us. And I think we've seen, and our report also talks about in the case of the digital competition bill, which thankfully for now is in cold storage, which Mr. Khandelwal doesn't need to take e-commerce companies to task. There are possible interferences with how device makers, for instance, can ensure your security, and it's done so passively, and you don't have to do anything but update your software. So, I mean, we need to think about these things a little more deliberately than we do in public discourse.
The business of technology, particularly for Indian businesses that want to do business around the world, they need the ability to access global data markets and to move their customers' data around the world securely. So there are ways to do it, protecting the important, vital national interest of India, while also allowing Indian businesses to serve customers around the world, to export their services and products around the world, and making sure that global data flows are done securely and protecting data while still enabling global commerce.
Absolutely. I think that's a great note to end our conversation on. Thank you so much to all my panelists. It was fantastic.